So I'm here with Kylie, Roddy, a new fellow to the BHS and first time badminton rider. Had a great spin around the pole last autumn. You've obviously had a walk round, I've had a walk round as well, the cross country course. What are your feelings about being here? And then secondly, what do you feel about, what are your thoughts on the course so far?
Well, for me, it's been a childhood dream coming true. So to be stood the other side of the string and be in the channel walking the track is a very different feeling to the one when you're observing from the outside. So how do I feel about it? I feel like as focused as I've ever been. I feel like the horse is in really good form, so that's a positive vibe for me. And the course is there to be jumped, and I'm on a jumper, so it's a really good feeling. And we all know that things can go wrong on the cross country day, but going forwards, I think I've come here prepared to be as good as I can be. So that for me is a great feeling.
Fantastic. So I mean, the course itself. So we just started talking about it slightly. The first part of the course, from my point of view, you got your first 10 fences. There are questions that, you know, Huntsman's closed, etc.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it's one that's nursemaiding you into positive riding and good feel. Is there anything early part that sort of is focusing your mind more so than you thought?
I think Eric's been really clever, and I think the way the quarry will ride, I think they maybe will land a bit dead in the feet, so then we're going to have to make up our own stride pattern coming out, but that's where line becomes more important than the stride pattern you're on. And then I think again it's about the confidence you get jumping the next fence, which is the tree stump before the Huntsman. So, and then the Huntsman's is all about holding your line, isn't it? So it's made the riders ride with their mind and mental state, but making sure the horses stay balanced and between both reins, but leg to hand, which is the job of the course designer. So I'd say he's been really clever. Each question asks the rider a slightly different thing.
Yes. And
I hope I've interpreted that right, and I'm sure there'll be other people that will be thinking that as well.
I think, for me, I think exactly. It's all about each fence being a different question, and why and how you're going to ride it. Is you stick in the correct hand if you want that first? How are you going to? At what point are you going to leave your line to pick up on the fence? Like even coming through your first part of the leg, you canter through the water. How late do you leave it to come to that
go
brush?
and knife in?
And it's those little cheeky elements to the course. It's just about knowing what you're on and just, as you say, line versus distance, and working through that way. The main part of the lake, what are your thoughts on that? I think
it's there to be jumped. I think if you ride your first bit well, they should see their way out.
Absolutely.
I think the tricky thing there is actually when they could jump out through the right shoulder and pick up the right brush by accident. So that wouldn't be my plan at this point in time. My plan would be go left side brush so that they can pick up the C element easy.
It's there in front of you then.
If they jump in and go through the right shoulder, which the turn is absolutely begging them to do, your ride to the C out could be a dicey one. So it's just making sure that you've got your contingency plan versus your ideal, this is my plan and that's how I'm going to ride it. Because we all know at badminton we've got crowds, we've got other things that end up influencing horses, and therefore we've got to have our A game here, but our B game in the pocket, and we've got to be able to pull it out any time.
Exactly. Moving on from the water, we've got a long run, got a nice double of egg boxes, which are big and bold, but actually jumping out the stride. And
that should set them up well for the broken bridge.
You
know, the open distance, the great big squareness of them should help the horses find their rhythm and stride.
Indeed. And then after that, where are we going down to the footbridge?
So I think the broken bridge in itself is a good question. But I don't think the accidents or the control will actually come into play until the next fence.
Well, your big table to brush corners, decent and stand up, and a little bit of a camber. So
gravity is asking the horse to go right at the first corner, isn't it? The camber's taking them that way, so it's making sure that you've not let the gravity stay too much in them after the bridge. You've got to be able to break up the canter and make sure that they're sat on the back end.
And put some shape back into the jump over a big table, but actually not letting that carry you the wrong direction. So then, it's finding your line through those two corners. then down to your
big footbridge.
Big footbridge.
Yeah.
Plenty to jump, but
Plenty
actually just again getting you riding forward. So from the technicality of the fence before.
Yeah, and hopefully the big corners and the big table, the scope and step in the horse will be there.
Exactly.
So it's just coming off and making sure again that the line held before, during, and after your jumping efforts doesn't get you into trouble.
No, exactly. Straightforward fence running up the hill to the pond up the top end.
Yeah.
Again, a good question.
Good question. Turn should help them.
Absolutely.
So the turn should maybe stick the inside hind leg under, so that they're already standing up, and they should then jump in on the pop rather than jumping on the open. So your 3-stride distance, if you use the turn in the right way, should be quite good. And equally, if they jump in and stumble, the balance should be good enough that they've got room to adjust what they've got.
Exactly. My thoughts, my go-to on that, I'm not going to influence you, but my thoughts on that is almost to go further along on the dry ground before you turn, so you're almost in your mind putting a turn back. Yeah. You've almost coming back towards your fence in the water.
The horse sees the way
where
out.
They're going. Otherwise, if you knife in too early and square it off, you're going to be carried away from where you want to turn to, and that's a little bit just something that came to my mind. Having come out there, running down the hill,
big old coffin,
nice coffin fence.
Yeah. So I think the upright brushing demands respect from the rider, obviously, and making sure that the rider's balance is in the best possible place. So 2/3 of the horse in front of you, making sure the horse can use his neck, because that's what he's got to do. He's got to jump in over the brush, which is an upright question, so he has to use the top of his bascule, and then they've got to use an open jump at the ditch, because that's a yawner. It's a big ditch. So no looking down there, George. Looking at the next bit.
Keep going, and then your fence afterwards. That is something that's just, we've seen it in the past from where the bank was. They had it jumping off the bank in the past, and he's used that question there.
It didn't jump very well last time, did it, on the bank?
Not at all.
So I think it'd be silly not to respect that, and I think the distance will be 2 or 3, and horses will do what they feel is right. And I think ownership of the fence there has to be the horses, as long as the rider's got the line and the power and the balance.
Thoughts there, ride for 2, expect anything.
Yeah, ride for 2 and sit for 3.
Exactly.
And then pat them on the landing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that, exactly that. Then we come up the hill, then we've got another good question. So the intensity of the course is building through that area. Your 2 corners you come to.
And I think those corners are, for me, really dependent on whether they've gone on 2 or 3 coming out the coffin. So if they've gone on 2, they're a negative equity. The jump is actually lower than where they've took off from.
Yes.
So the backs are the wrong way, they've jumped a bit through the chest, and now we've got 2 frangible pins.
Yes.
So actually if they've gone 3 and gone to the bottom and they've used their bascule, that's nearly done a better thing for the 2 corners. Equally, if they've gone and been brave, and we're grateful for that on the 2, we've then got to break up the canter and make sure that we've got our bascule jump.
Shape back into the way the horse is going.
Otherwise we'll have a pin.
Yep, absolutely.
So, and I don't know, it's quite hard to see how close the crowd are going to be to those corners. That's the only other thing there, because if you come off your line there, you're in trouble. From
past experience, people love to hang over the strings, so you're going to be pushed in much closer than you first think when you're walking. But equally, having jumped that first one, you've then got that micromanaging through the undulations of dropping down, coming up, and a blind turn back to the next one, which isn't particularly as high, but low and wide, and needs as much, if not more, respect. And you can tell that Eric's thought about that, because he's numbered that separately. Exactly. So he's actually given us a bit of a clue. We've got to make sure that we've understood what he's written. Yeah, exactly. So there is an alternative. There's a get out of jail if you need to. And again, losing a pin, having a 20 is much worse than maybe having 8 seconds added to your time. Absolutely. And it just sort of works better for you. And then we sort of run on down from there. Some more yawners. More yawners. More big ditches. Big ditches. I actually don't dislike them. Nope. Maybe I was saying I hate them on Saturday, but at the moment I would say if I've done my job well enough early enough, he's had the ditch at the trunk early, he's had his coffin jump, and actually at that point in the course should be, as long as the tiredness or the fatigue element hasn't come in to get us, actually we should be on a horse that's got good stride length, scopy jump because of the opposites that they've jumped, and now it's about making sure that they're level to both reins and holding the line well. Because there's no turn to these, they're often very long approaches, and that often
doesn't make us lazy as riders, but we often don't quite interpret where the horse is in its own canter.
Exactly. And I think from my point of view, rider responsibility about making sure you've got balance, you've got that traction, the head's up, the hind legs are underneath them. Even though it's easy to be drawn and you ride too forward too early, it's actually being patient. Just give them time to sight it, but you put the power in last minute. And the way you jump the first fence over the ditch, coming back to Vicarage V, will give you an indication of how well it's going to jump. And if you get a good ride over the first one, second one's going to be lovely. It's just another fence.
Yeah, exactly right. I hope that's how it works. My stick will be in the right hand, that's for sure.
Exactly. And it's always so easy when you're not riding, and just having been in myself, and you just think, the labels these fences have on them and the history they have, it sometimes puts so much importance on them, and just working through and trying to take the labels off of the names off the fences and just think,
no, absolutely. It's not really the Vicarage V, it's a suspended rail over a ditch on a line. That's in my head, that's what it is.
And then so from there on, how are you feeling about coming home? You've got your fence on the mound, and then run on down to a couple of bounces.
It's a big question, the solar panels. They've given us 2 options. There's a kind of gradient option, but a lot more 4 jumping efforts versus 3 jumping efforts, and a steering element. So on the tired horse, I think that's probably a tripping hazard. I think the direct way for me at this point in time would be the choice. And then the trick about that is to let them jump the first solar panel on the tall mound, and then make sure as I'm landing and the horse is going downhill, you let them use their own balance to go down. And if they've gone too free and open with the gravity pulling them down into the dip, then you've got to just make sure you reset the balance in the bottom of the dip and then repress. But don't forget to repress, because going dry to the bounce will be.
You want to, that rise of ground, you want to use that as a springboard to just work your way through. And even though the fatigue element starts to kick in there, I think that is actually helping remind the horse about athleticism. Although the thought of jumping a bounce is on a more tired horse, but actually it's reminding horses at this level, they're athletes, and it's just reminding, what would you do at home? Easy.
And I think just there, the rider responsibility element is in the rider's shoulders and upper body. Our job is to help them there. We'll be tired as well, so we've got to make sure that we're doing the right things. But again, rebalance, push up the hill, stay above them, and let the horse be as good as it can be.
Completely. So then we've got a few fences coming home. Again, some long galloping stretches. You've got your work out what you're sitting on, keeping that confidence working way through. So you work your way through there. Nice little throw you off your line coming into your little wood complex.
It's not to be underestimated, that table, is it?
It's innocuous. It's upright in its design, and it almost. Again, you want to almost be in a show jumping type of canter. It's not overly wide. It's actually making sure you've got the balance on landing, because you've got to turn away from where you're going. That's my thoughts on that.
The thing that might be quite hard is if you square up to it, you've got a turning horse that's tired, which is no good for us. It's energy sapping, it's not energy efficient, so we want the kind of turns, and how much of a slice we take it on depends on what tank we've got to get home. But the more you slice it, the more the drop is on the landing as well at that fence, so there's a bit of a consideration there for that.
Sort of working physically, your head, mentally, and actually making sure the horse is just able to, even if you do angle it, the hind legs following the front legs, just really finding way on the way through there. After that, you've got a long old gallop down the hill and
a
back
tiring
up,
one.
Very energy sapping.
We go up past the old staircase, and the ground a bit does that, doesn't it? So actually, for them to use their shoulders and engine to get up there, they're going to get up to the top of that hill and need to breathe.
Take a breather,
They're going to have to. If not, they end up jumping a bit on the flat side.
And then you've got.
Which one are you going? I'm going to go right hand table to left hand skinny.
Okay.
Only because when I looked at the camber, I thought at this stage fighting gravity is hard for them. So actually the camber falls off to the left. So jump the scopy fence and then balance all the way down to the skinny and let the ground do the work that the horse's hind legs should be doing. Whereas if I go straight across, I'm going.
Exactly. And it's being mindful what you're riding and how you're working through. And as I've said, riders see things slightly differently
Yeah.
sometimes, and I know another rider that's talking about a different line.
Yeah.
It's absolutely up
They're
to
not
them.
wrong.
Nothing,
They
no,
know what they're
absolutely.
riding.
But it's just really going, okay, but think about this.
Yeah.
It's all those different things. And that's the point where you go to move away from that and you realise the power's not,
Yeah.
we're running out of fuel
Yeah.
rapidly here. So it's nursemaiding them home.
Yeah.
You've got another little cheeky one that are coming down a dip.
An Eric special.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, are you still paying attention?
Are you still on the button?
Yeah, and then sort of that is just a decent question
I
on
think
a tired horse.
I think the way he's not allowed us to take the approach we want to the houses by putting the little hut there
Yes.
is clever.
Yeah, very much so.
I think the way he's used the ground is even more clever.
Yeah.
Well done, Eric. I think for me, I'm going to go, my horse turns left easier than he turns right, so actually I'm going to go through the hut a little bit on the slice, so follow the approach line, go into the pit and then knife on up to the left with my right leg, and then try and use the rising ground to springboard him. Whereas I felt that if I went on the left hand side, I'd be holding a line, and being that late on the course with too much in my hand ends up being a dangerous place for me on the horse that I'm riding.
I mean, your last two fences, they're straightforward. It's just reminding yourself.
There've been many people lying on the floor, right?
Exactly. We've seen it in the past, and we don't want to see it again. So
No,
it's just,
we don't.
It's just reminding yourself that you haven't finished till you're finished, and just keep chipping away at the horse, keep on nursemaiding them home, but actually don't lose your brain in the last minute. Really, just keeping that focus. But I think and then just sort of.
And
get through that
he's
finish
done a
line.
great thing, hasn't he, with the turn to the last fence, which has been in place for quite a few years now. But again, it stops the riders. You can't chase the seconds down.
No.
You've got to come home on the horse you're on and make sure that the balance is correct coming to the last.
Exactly. Well, listen, I wish you all the best for Saturday, and good luck for your dress tomorrow afternoon as well.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Kylie.